But when people talk about these things, they'll often like loosely refer to them as, oh, Nintendo did this, or Nintendo wanted this, or they made this decision, or the developers, or they don't look up names and faces. Um, and I think it's really humanizing to just watch a video of Koji Kondo playing the piano. I think it's a pretty complicated topic when you look at it, like when you zoom out and you see the whole picture rather than just having a bunch of bullet point, fun facts.
Oh, talented. Such talent.
When I started doing this research, I was pretty annoyed that I was the only one kind of talking about these things. Like, at length. I know people mention it as like, ooh, cool, fun fact. The developers did this, blah, blah, blah. But they don't talk about it in depth of like, okay, this is the artist's intent for the thing, and this is why this exists, and, talking about their life story. Like, I think it's a pretty complicated topic when you look at it, like, when you zoom out and you see the whole picture rather than just having a bunch of bullet point, fun facts. So something going on with the original Mario 64 is that, when you're returning the baby penguin to its mother, that's not really a mother and child story. That's more about, like, oh, these are, an actual family of penguins, and this is their habitat. Like, if you go into, Bob-omb Battlefield, the first star is killing King Bob-omb. That's like, he's a tyrant, and you're saving the people from the Wicked King or whatever. Right? And then with Whomp's Fortress, similar thing. There's King Whomp. There's King Boo. There's a lot of kings in Mario 64. But the Thwomps, this is where they live. This is Whomp's Fortress. You might be able to tell where I'm going with this. Here's a bully. Bullies live in Lethal Lava Land. So, there's always this aspect of it where Koizumi is making inanimate objects and supposing what kind of place they live in. Whether that be the desert, or a grassland, or, whatever. With Mario 64, obviously there is hardware limitations, so they can't just spawn a new thing in the level while you're already in it. So, for example, when you kill King Whomp and the tower spawns, you have to have a level transition. That's pretty much what Koizumi was trying to get across with this, is that this is where the penguins live, this is their environment. This is where they live their everyday lives. And something I didn't really get into is that when you select a new star, I know it's kind of seen as like maybe an archaic thing by a lot of people who don't have the context, but in later games in Sunshine and Galaxy, that still happens. You still get booted out of the level. What's really happening is that you're getting to see a new threat, you know, a new upset in their day-to-day lives. It's like, here's where the penguins live, and we establish them as characters, and then you see, oh, there's a new, maybe there's an invasive species that comes in, and you have to defeat it like a boss. Majora's Mask, you'll notice there's a lot of similarities between that and Sunshine, to the point where Majora's Mask is almost like a prototype of Sunshine in a way. Skull Kid and Shadow Mario, they're both running around town, pulling pranks. You know, even Delfino Plaza is a lot like Termina and Clocktown. I mean, in every area, there's like a new story about like, oh yeah, that Skull Kid came by and he reawakened some sort of kaiju monster to terrify us all. You know, he messed up the Great Fairy and all this other stuff. And that's what that's what Shadow Mario is doing. He's going up around and putting graffiti everywhere. He's reawakened Gooper Blooper and Petey Piranha. He's the reason that they're showing up in those areas. And that's also what's happening with Ganondorf. Ganondorf goes to Death Mountain, and he resurrects Volvagia. He resurrects Morpha. Morpha freezes over Zora's domain. You know, they're all sort of like troublemakers, and they're getting into mischief and pulling pranks. I guess Ganondorf's threats are much more existential. But it's the same principle of, like, having these multiple environments and seeing, like, threats to the habitat, threats to the ecosystem. They're, like, invasive species, essentially. And... oh, shit. That was Luigi. This is one of the things that helps illustrate that. There's a lot of, like, polish in retail Mario 64 that I think, like, if you look at a gradient like this, the vibrancy of it, this is a lot more reminiscent of what you'd see in Majora's Mask or in Sunshine. And there's a specific texture over here. Like, it's like these, you can tell it's supposed to be cobblestone, but it's like these really stylized, like, pastel-colored circles. I don't know, I think that, maybe this is just me, but I think, the retail version kind of sands these things away and just over-polishes it, where you don't really get, like, it loses some of the personality and the identity. You're getting to see a new threat, a new upset in their day-to-day lives. I think it's a pretty complicated topic when you look at it, like, when you zoom out and you see the whole picture rather than just having a bunch of bullet point, fun facts. It's like, here's where the penguins live, and we establish them as characters, and then you see, oh, there's a new... maybe there's an invasive species that comes in, and you have to defeat it like a boss. There's a video of, I think Mario Maker was really special for Takashi Tezuka, because he's been using, as they say, in the thing, Mario Maker is actually a tool that they used, for editing the levels. It's literally just, like, they did a little bit of R&D on it, so they added some, like, sound effects and stuff, but it's literally just the tool that they use every time, to make a new Mario game. And it's kind of awesome because there's in one of the promotional videos that Tezuka makes a level, and then he hands it over to Miyamoto, and Miyamoto plays it.
ちょっとマジでもう一回マジでやり直す。あかんやないこれ設計ミスです。
ここにクッパ出すのがまずかったかな。
ここにクッパ出すのはまずいよね。
ちょっと仕方ない。
手塚さん設計ミスじゃないですかこれは。
ちょっと意地悪すぎたかな。
はい、そうですね。
And there's a moment where he's like, "Oh, you put too many enemies here. Put a star here, so it's easier." And you could just imagine like 100 different scenarios, like when in the 80s and the 90s, where they're just doing that. It's awesome that we have kind of documentation of that almost. There's like this subtle shift to overhead games, and I think Tezuka wanted to do more like level design and less of like just iterating on a concept and that sort of thing. Like when people talk about how Mario games are like, you know, introducing a thing and then later in the level they challenge you on it. That's pretty much all Tezuka. But for Tezuka, he almost made Mario 3 top-down. And you'll notice, like, that's a similarity between Mario 3 and Zelda 2, is that you have these sort of, like, map environments that are overhead, and then when you touch an enemy, like you touch an Hammer Bro or whatever, you go into the side-scrolling mode and you fight them, right? Those are exactly the same, if you, like, compare them side by side and everything. Me, that like the Hammer Brothers, like I died to the Hammer Brother like at least 8 times before I get past him. I think that is a good way of explaining the contrast between Miyamoto and Tezuka, is that you'll notice in the arcade games they all have black backgrounds, and Mario Brothers 1 is a shift from that. I think Miyamoto really wanted to emphasize the profile of the character and the silhouette of them so that they'd stand out from the background. It sucks that the most recognizable character in video games is essentially just a mascot, and he was created to be a mascot. So, with Mario, Miyamoto drew the pixel art first, not the character design. So a lot of people will ask, oh, he's got a mustache, he's Italian, he's this fat plumber. Like, how is this even a character? The reason that doesn't really make sense is because he made the pixel art first. He just wanted to make distinctive features, a lot like Walt Disney did when he drew Mickey Mouse, you know. Mickey Mouse is wearing white gloves, not because of any story reason or any character reason, but because it just helps color contrast from his body. That's literally the only reason. And with Mario, you know, he's also wearing white gloves, you'll notice. He's got the bulbous nose. He's deliberately said, oh, we gave him a mustache so that we didn't have to draw a mouth. The hat, obviously he felt kind of weird about him having a square head. So giving it a brim, it's like, oh, it's a square hat. So it's more like believable. Right? Miyamoto really wanted to emphasize the profile of the character and the silhouette of them so that they'd stand out from the background. It's kind of like they do that in Scooby-Doo. With Scooby-Doo, there's really vibrant characters, and then they have these desaturated, dark backgrounds so that you get to see the characters very prominently. Yeah, so I guess talking about the arcade stuff more, and to kind of give background from like where Miyamoto's coming from when he makes Donkey Kong and all that stuff, is that at the time with Konami and Namco and all the arcade manufacturers, Sega, that industry, that whole industry, it originated from gambling, really gambling. And if you know the history of pinball, pinball also started as a gambling machine. And arcade games did too. And, you know, nowadays it'll give you tickets when you win, but before it would have just given you cash money. It's the same machine. So, I think it's important when discussing art history and video game history, like, it's important to solidify that video games were not always art. And I think people kind of bring that up as like a straw man argument when I say that video games are art. It's like, well, look at Pac-Man. It's obviously not art. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm making like a hypothetical example. I don't know why Chris put these trees inside flower beds, right? Or why he didn't put the trees over here on the right of the lake, or why this tree over here doesn't have a flower bed, right? But I think when we're considering, when we're talking about certain games that are not art, and they're only entertainment or toys, right? There's really no rhyme or reason behind these decisions. It's like, oh, they could have put it inside of a flower bed. They could have put the flowers over here and the trees over there. It really makes no difference. Whereas if it's art, if it's poetry, there's a specific reason. Oh, we put the tree over here because it's a tree at the top of a hill and someone's buried underneath it, right? Someone died and that's where their grave is, right? You'll notice also, like, on top of the different environments, there's also, like, Bomb Battlefield has a mountain at the top, even though it's a field. There's a tower at the top of this one. The way I kind of think about Koizumi's level design is it's like he's a great cake decorator, and so you can see the levels as like different tiers of the cake, and coins and collectibles and all that is like frosting. It's sprinkled around the edges, it's on the corners. There's a real architectural beauty to what he's doing. And that certainly rubbed off on Onuma. I show a little bit in the beginning, like, I'm talking about Lorne Lanning, and he has an interview where he he essentially says, like, well, the trend right now, because he's publishing on the PlayStation 1, the trend right now is 3D, and he's making Onworld, which is a 2D game, and he's saying, well, 3D is not really important right now. What's important is making solid, he says good gameplay, but what he really means is, like, a solid foundation for, like, just getting mechanics. And a lot of early 3D games end up being very lackluster because those developers, they were trained in a certain way where they couldn't really tell stories. They just were purely looking for mechanical satisfaction in the 90s. And so when you take away the technological advantage they had, you don't really have a leg to stand on anymore. You don't have a reason to be invested in the game because it's not satisfying and there's no story. RPGs got away with that a lot because, well, yeah, actually, a lot of the ones on the PlayStation were still 2D. And also, huge thing is, like, even Final Fantasy, which went 3D, you still had the story to be involved in. So there was a reason for you to play it. There's a reason for the audience to actually engage with it. And so when you get to 3D, it's like, this big hurdle. As I said, you know, with Mario Maker, that's actually just the tools they used to make Mario games, and so Tezuka's really happy to have that released. You'll notice, like, he has a huge shift in his personality, whereas, like, before, in previous interviews, Tezuka's very, I guess, reserved? Is the right term? Like, he'll just sit next to Miyamoto while Miyamoto does all the talking. Whereas with Mario Maker, he's, like, a lot of enthusiasm. He's like, oh, finally, you know, people can make their own Mario levels. I think that was really gratifying for him. Because they did all sorts of presentations and stuff where they would, like, just hand kids the Wii U gamepad, and they would mess with it. And you get to see them make the levels on the show stage. And once they realize that he is, like... Because Tezuka's actually struggling with the 3D stuff. It's like, okay, I'll do it. And then with Aonuma, when he gets hired on Ocarina of Time, you know, he's really just supposed to be a level designer. He's really just there to make the dungeons. The big thing I want to talk about with Section 3, before I even start talking about Ocarina of Time, is what Ocarina of Time would look like without Aonuma. And it turns out the skeleton of it is there. Absolutely. So, as I've said, you know, Koizumi came up with Ganondorf. That's all in the A Link to the Past manual, actually. So, when Aonuma comes in and he's just designing the dungeons, and turns out he was a complete natural at it from his wood carving background. And so they just saddled him with everything. And even though he's like, he comes in late and he's like the 5th director or whatever, but he really has a lot more creative control than it would seem on the outset. Yeah, there's a lot of things with the story that I think would be the same. The earlier games, you know, the development teams are so small that they're really like if you're just working on level design, right, or if you're just credited with level design, you're really working on all the different parts of the game, because it's just seen as like, oh, you're helping us make the game. And it's kind of like this indiscriminate thing where it's like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. Which I think is important to talking about both Koizumi and Aonuma's roles. Because they were really saddled with a lot more than they signed up for. And they took it well, but it was kind of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'll work on the manual, fine. And then it's like, oh yeah, come up with the whole story. So when Aonuma comes in and he's just designing the dungeons, and turns out he was a complete natural at it from his wood carving background. And so they just saddled him with everything. And even though he's like, he comes in late and he's like the 5th director or whatever, but he really has a lot more creative control than it would seem on the outset. Yeah, there's a lot of things with the story that I think would be the same. To give an example, so when I'm talking about, like, Koizumi's habitats for inanimate objects that are anthropomorphized, that's kind of what Gorons are. Gorons are pretty much just rock people in the same way that Bob-ombs are bomb people, and in the same way that Thwomps are brick people. Like, they roll around like rocks, they eat rocks. It's kind of a cartoon idea. But what Aonuma comes in and does is you know, this Tezuka came up with the sages, right? But they didn't have like a personality. They didn't have a relationship with Link, and I think that is the more important takeaway with Ocarina of Time. Is like there's an emphasis on your relationship with other people, and it's sort of this idea that when you're a kid, you know, you don't value friendships as much because, you're just friends with everyone, right? And it doesn't matter as much. But then when you're an adult, you realize, like, how few friends you actually have, and you start to value those relationships a lot more. And so, you know, like, at first, Link's very, Darunia is very touchy-feely, hugs him and pats him on the head and stuff, and Rudo is tsundere, obviously. Like, you'll notice that kind of carries over into the story a bit, which just wouldn't be there without Aonuma, because it's not just the dungeons, you know, there's things in the dungeons where there's cutscenes specifically centered around the characters, and once you realize that, it's like, this is integral to the dungeon. The fact that you get all the way up to the boss door in Fire Temple with Darunia, and then he says, you know what, I'll go take care of Valagia, you go and free all the Gorons, and eventually you go find the boss key too, but it's like integrated into the story to the point where, like, there's really no way that Aonuma didn't work on the story while he's working on the dungeons. Because they're just way too interconnected. He had to have at least been consulted on that stuff. And you'll see that those personalities of those characters and you know, those types of things really carry over into Aonuma's later games with characters like Tetra, Midna. That's really the bedrock of it, is the sages. So that's a huge thing to talk about with this video that I'm doing. I mean, that was one of the first things that I was set on talking about, was the sages. The sages are going to be a huge thing in Section 4 when I talk about all the flaws with the games, which I'm saving for last because I really just want to talk about the director's intended interpretation. I don't want to talk about, you know, well, video games aren't perfect, you know. It's an unfortunate reality, but to make my argument, I kind of have to ignore that for at least temporarily. Because, yeah, truth is, they are flawed. There's real problems with these games. Like, Mario 64 is extremely unfinished. I think one of the points I make is that if you look at, you know, earlier games in a game director's, I guess they're like gameography, if you want to call it that, right? Not their bibliography, because it's not books, and not their filmography, because it's not films, so I guess gameography. But, you know, however you want to say that, the earlier titles that these people worked on are really extremely unfinished. The main reason to play them still, the main reason to go back and look at them, is because they're early signs of this artist, and you're able to look back at them and go, oh, well, this is indicative of this, and this is indicative of that. But they really weren't able to get their full point across, and so they're able to, as time goes on, you know, because they have less studios getting in the way, they have the technological there's less technological limitations. All those sorts of things line up, and they're able to achieve their vision. And there's a lot of, like, whiplash from fans from their earlier work. It's like, oh, well, you were one way and he changed. It's like, well, he didn't really change. This is just what he always wanted to do but couldn't. And that's a very tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. I mean, there's a lot of different games that I could point to for that. It's obviously Koizumi and not Aonuma, though. Who is our subject in the video. It would be kind of difficult to make a video about Koizumi on his own. I think the closest he gets to really executing his vision is Sunshine, but even then, it's still very unfinished. He isn't able to, because all the resources were pulled to make Luigi's Mansion instead, and then it got rushed because Luigi's Mansion wasn't doing well. So he really didn't get to do what he wanted with that game. And then with Galaxy, there's just too many pressures on him for you to really make the argument. Like, that's basically just what Mario 128 turned into because of the gravity physics and all that. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I like 3D Land more than I like Galaxy as far as Koizumi games go, even though he's only producer in that one. What? But yes, concede that a lot of Ocarina of Time is not Aonuma. Just the important parts. Majora's Mask is the complicated one, right? Majora's Mask is the very complicated one because a lot of people know that Aonuma didn't get to complete his vision with that one. But I think the aspects of that are really misunderstood. It's kind of a multi-layered thing. So, just coming out of Ocarina of Time, I think what Aonuma wanted to do is really pretty simple, which is just continue the story of Ocarina of Time. There's a lot of things that are set up there that just don't get explored. And I think they speak for themselves, but to describe them is to describe the timeline. And if that's not your cup of tea, then you probably won't like anything else I have to say. But yeah, you have two endings in Ocarina of Time. Zelda is left behind. Ganon's defeated, or Ganon gets sealed away. This is a perfect music for this, by the way. So yeah, Ganon gets sealed away. In that timeline. And then in the other one, Link comes back with the Triforce on his hand before Ganondorf can even do anything. And he gets persecuted for crimes that he didn't commit yet. Right? And seeing both of those outcomes is essentially what the timeline is. Not just on a plot level, but also thematically. You'll notice there are connections in between Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Now, it's weird because he wanted to do that right out of the gate. That's what Majora was trying to be. Because initially, Miyamoto wants him to make Master Quest, and he's not very happy with that. So he goes off and he makes a couple of levels by himself. And then he shows it to Miyamoto and he's like, okay, I want a team and I want money on this, right? We're making an actual sequel. We're not doing Master Quest. And he's like, okay, you can have half of the Master Quest team on one condition. You have to do this in a year. Now, everything up to that point that was in that version of Majora's Mask was attempting to be a sequel to Ocarina and continuing those things from the story. So when Child Link goes up to Child Zelda and is like, has Triforce in the hand, tells on Ganondorf, and he gets executed later on, all that stuff would have actually happened on screen. I don't know how much I can emphasize that. I'm going to talk about that way more in Section 4, because that gets into the flaws with the games, and I think what needs to be fixed in order for the overarching story to properly make sense. Because there's a lot of things with Twilight Princess where they try to fix things retroactively, rather than just explain them as the story would naturally unfold. And it has a lot of hiccups because of that. Whereas if you just get to see them on screen, it would be way easier. You wouldn't have to... There would be no shorthanding. It would just be like, oh yeah, you know because you played it. So... But yeah, that's more so Section 4. I will talk a lot about Section 4 in this live stream, by the way. I plan to. I very much plan to. But Section 3 is really long, so let's just... We're at Majora, okay? We're not there. I try not to talk about this as much as possible, because I know that Section 2 is the most divisive part of my video. And I deliberately made it that way, by the way. But it's interesting that Vinny Vinesauce makes fun of Death Stranding for having having actors portray their characters, and the characters are very obviously modeled after their actors. It's weird that he makes that complaint about Death Stranding, because Ocarina of Time is literally the same way. All of the Ocarina of Time NPCs are based on developers' faces. They took their faces and they did like cartoon versions of them and put those as textures, face textures on the NPCs. And that's one of Vinny's favorite games, so... What the fuck, dude? Why do I keep missing that jump? So... There's... Specific to that, Shigeru Miyamoto is modeled into the character the Happy Mask Salesman. And if you know anything about Majora's Mask, that should set off a few alarms for you. As soon as Aonuma gets the 1-year deadline thing, that is the point at which Majora's Mask stops being Aonuma's game. Because he basically completely shuts down and is like... Again, he was saddled with way more responsibility than he ever asked for. All he wanted was to direct his own game. It's like, you've got it, but you have to do it under a year. And that's like... People try to quantify that by saying, oh yeah, Ocarina took 3 years. I don't think people really appreciate the industry standards. It's almost... I mean... I don't want to speak for Aonuma, obviously. There is an interview, that is now, or not an interview, even. It's a presentation Aonuma gave, that is very pertinent to this. I should just let it play out. I don't want to misquote him or anything. but it's pretty clear that him and Miyamoto have some beef. Totally shuts down and just says, "Hey, Koizumi, can you help me out?" And Koizumi is also pretty upset with Miyamoto. And at this point, he's willing to take it, but he really just wants to have full creative control over something. And yeah, a lot of Majora's Mask ends up being Koizumi because of that. Like I said, it's basically a prototype version of Sunshine, where you have these characters who all have a central problem of this troublemaker who runs around town pulling pranks on everybody. Skull Kid or Shadow Mario, but you know, same role in the story. I think the parts that are still there, Aonuma said that, and I have interpreted this literally, because what he says is that Koizumi worked on the characters in Clocktown, and he personally worked on the characters outside of it. So once again, he's primarily doing the level design in the dungeons, but also the characters that live outside the dungeon, like in Zora's Domain, or I guess it's not Zora's Domain, it's Zora Hall, I think it is. The Gorons in Snowhead. I always get that mixed up with Snow Peak in Twilight Princess. Oh, wow. Goomba right outside the door. Come on, Chris. Primarily, the one that I'm going to talk about in detail is in Icona Valley. There's the I guess he's an archaeologist. Yeah, he's an archaeologist and his daughter. I think her name's Pamela, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I'm more fuzzy on that because, well, I'll talk about it. At any rate, that is a autobiographical detail in there. What Aonuma's getting at with the Icona Doctor is in the same way that the Icona Doctor is transformed by the Gibdo mask and taken away from his daughter with his archaeology work. Aonuma has a similar fear because at the time of Majora, he is a recent father. And he's expressing his fear that his career will take him away from his son. And you'll notice in all of these cases where he inserts his son a lot in the games. In all of those cases, the character he's depicting is slightly older than his son is at the time. Because this is a projected fear. This is what he fears will happen in the future. And so, as far as I know, his son was... I mean, we don't have his exact age, obviously. Privacy is a big thing in Japan. But, I mean, judging from his age, you know, and judging from when people generally have kids, it would make sense to me that his son is no older than 10 at that point. And Pamela seems to be a little bit older than that, maybe. And then all the stuff with Twilight Princess is like, oh yeah, well, Link's in his teens there. Anyway. Point is... I think there's a point to be made with that stuff that he specifically says in the interview, oh yeah, this is autobiographical. He uses that word. And, I mean, I don't know, maybe, I don't know Japanese, so maybe the translation's off or whatever, but, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where that mistranslates and it means something completely different from autobiographical. So I think it's pretty safe to say that that part of the game, yeah, the Zelda games are pop art. They really are, they're popular, and they were meant to be popular. I have no grand illusions about that. I really don't. My argument is that we should look at the kernel of, what is there. When we're having a mature discussion about it, this is what we should probably focus on. But yeah, in the end, Ocarina is mostly Koizumi, and then Majora is also mostly Koizumi. You can very easily imagine that, Koizumi just rubbed off on Aonuma because of, they directed 2 games together, and it's not like they were small games either. They probably bonded. I mean, I've never been in a work environment where the coworkers don't bond over making fun of their boss. It's never happened. Because as soon as the boss walks away, it's like, well, what the hell did that guy just say to us? Like, there's always some kind of, like... And that is kind of a primary thing with Koizumi and Aonuma. Something that's funny, and I kind of want to include as foreshadowing, is there's a quote from Miyamoto. They asked Tezuka, so what does Mr. Miyamoto like to work with? And Tezuka says, oh, he's just, a nice, normal person. He's like working with a friend. And Miyamoto cuts in to Tezuka's question, and he says, that's how I try to be anyway, but some of the new guys think I'm terrible. And it's just... I think there's a lot of things going on with that in retrospect. There's no way we could have known at the time, right? But think about who's new to the Zelda team at that time. It's Koizumi and Aonuma. That's who he's talking about. Like, there's a non-zero chance, right? Yeah, they more than likely bonding over their shared distaste for Miyamoto and all the different ways that he's getting in the way of them creating their art. There's been so many different cases of that, of them just like openly like criticizing him in interviews and stuff, and it's always like, it's always hilarious because like, oh my gosh, they got away with saying this. And again, I really don't want to speak for them, but yeah, it's all there. It's basically like Mario might as well be wearing a balaclava with how many things are obscuring his face. So I already knew, from my previous rant and some of the things that I was doing research initially was like with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. The things that I learned about Shigeru Miyamoto were not favorable. They did not paint him in a very good light. And so I knew off the bat that I would be kind of clowning on him. So early on, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I can make it seem like, he's a nice dude. Especially when he has creative control over a project, like in Donkey Kong or in Zelda 2. Maybe he's doing something interesting with his art. I was really just wishful thinking. It turns out that's not really the case. I guess I'll talk about that. So even after Miyamoto comes up with that, and he realizes, oh, well, you know, maybe he has a mustache, and that's why his mouth looks like that, or you know, all those things. When those things add up, he does eventually draw the character, and he figures out what he's supposed to look like in a drawing. But he uses it. Initially, Mario is called Mr. Video. Mr. Video is essentially just Miyamoto's trademark, his signature. So he just puts this Mr. Video character in every game that he does. And he says, oh, I'd almost put him in a game for no reason. It's literally a direct quote from one of his interviews. You'll notice, you know, he's in Punch-Out. He's in, you know, there was a shopping app for the Famicom. Mario's in it. So it's really just a mascot for Nintendo. It's just a little symbol to show that, hey, Miyamoto worked on this. They really, through that, Aonuma learned how to lie to Miyamoto. Which is pretty important to Wind Waker. I just want to think about Majora for a little bit longer because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything as we get into this. It starts with an L, I think. I think it's Lulu. Yeah, it's Lulu. So, with her and, that's something that he brings back up in Skyward Sword, because the Tad tones you get for I think it's the third time you visit Farron Woods. The Tad tones are a deliberate reference to the Zora eggs. To me, that very much indicates that the story of Lulu and her trying to get her babies back and all that stuff. She loses her ability to sing because of that. So that seems, you know, whether or not that actually happened to Aonuma, or if it's just something that is personally meaningful to him. I guess I can't say for sure. It's something I'm still kind of working on, but it's there. Yeah, needless to say, Aonuma felt like, at the time, of course, he felt that Majora was a bit of a dud. In terms of, he wanted to continue the rest of Ocarina of Time's story, and he felt like he couldn't do that now. So, like, what do you even do from there? Wind Waker is the answer to that. Aonuma pretty much had to lie to Miyamoto. From what I can gather so far, and I'll do more research as I go, obviously. This video is not done. It is not done, okay? It is not. From what I can gather, two major things were decided upon first, and that's Tetra and also the ocean stuff. And I think Tetra's whole thing, right, is that she's Zelda. It's essentially the Sheik thing, right? I think people oversimplify that because it's not just Sheik, right? Zelda isn't just hiding, herself. She was actually hidden from herself. It's kind of like, there's no way that they could have done that without realizing what they were doing. She doesn't even know who she is, right? And I think that's such a clever thing. So many people seem to misunderstand this, and they think that she wasn't meant to be Zelda, or she was meant to be, you know, oh, they whitewashed her, or whatever. It's like, no, that's... I hate talking about it, man. It just... It makes me angry. Like, how can people think about art in this way? It just shows no curiosity, man. Okay, yeah. So it's obviously very intentional. They wanted you to see that oh, she's being hidden from herself. It's a cool twist on that. And then with the water, I think a big thing with what Aonuma learned from Majora's Mask essentially was that he really couldn't do the things that he wanted to do, and he was not happy about that. And Wind Waker has a pretty bittersweet ending that does explain this in dialogue. Like, kind of didactically. Essentially, what we know is that Aonuma has said multiple times that Toon Link was meant to be an analog and a stand-in for his son, and that this game is he made the game for his son, as a message to him. And if you connect that back to, you know, Pamela and that whole story, you see, like, well, King Hyrule is just Aonuma's self-insert character. It's pretty naked. But yeah, knowing what all of King Hyrule's dialogue and stuff, and he's explaining these things about what happened to the kingdom and what he wishes onto the Triforce. He wishes for a future for them, and to wash away the past. There's a pretty clear message there that, you know, Aonuma just wanted to continue the story of Hyrule, essentially. And so when the king is washing it away with his wish, what he's saying there is that it's okay that I didn't get to make Majora's Mask the way that I wanted to. He's kind of like he's finding closure with that emotionally, which is really interesting. Like, not only is he inserting his personal life into the video game story, but he's also, like, his career is, like, reflecting it, you know, and it's like making a very transparent comment on himself. Is like, yeah, that was selfish of me to want this, because the king says in that sense I was no better than Ganondorf. Is like, because Ganondorf wanted to. He saw that everyone moved on, and he didn't move on. He kept clinging to the past to the detriment of, you know, you see the races in Wind Waker, they've all moved on. The Kokiri don't really have ties to the Koroks, or the reverse is true. The Koroks don't have ties to the Kokiri, really. The Rito don't really have ties to the Zora. That's not a mistake. It's just meant to show that the world has moved on. Life continues without them. We don't need them. Ganon is like the only one that's upset by that, and he's the villain. You're not meant to sympathize with him. In between those things is the art style of Wind Waker, which Aonuma did not come up with, by the way. I think Haruhana is his name. Haruhana made the Toon Link art style, and then they explain this. I think it's on the back of not Zeldapedia, but the other one, the Arts and Artifacts, I think it is. I'm pretty sure that's the one. It's in the back pages of that. He's talking about it, and he says that Aonuma stuck up for him, even though Miyamoto didn't want this to be a thing. And he said that he originally made the cartoony art style because he wanted to stand out from all the, photorealistic environments at the time. Because it's like, oh wow, we have HD consoles now, or I guess not HD consoles. What do you even call that? It's higher definition than N64, whatever. You know what I mean. Yeah, so we have PS2 graphics. Let's put them to use. Okay. So he wants it to be able to stand out on the shelf so that, and Aonuma predicts before it even happens, oh, okay, Miyamoto's gonna hate this. Let's lie to him. And they make this, fake trailer where adult Link has a Majora shield and all this shit. It's actually pretty reminiscent of the Ocarina of Time trailer where he's fighting Dark Link. You could argue that's poetic. Koizumi worked on both of those. He's a big animation guy. Both of those trailers, I mean. So yeah, he totally hides that from Miyamoto, and then when Miyamoto finds out, oh shocker, he's pissed about it. But it's too late for them to even do anything, so he won. And what's incredible is that he gets interviewed after that, and it has a little thing where it explains that, oh yeah, his first game was Marvelous. Here's a bunch of blurbs about Marvelous. I already showed that in the video, but I didn't talk about this aspect of it where there's a blurb at the end where it's like, basically, okay, so the article is framed in such a way, where it's basically explaining like, oh hey, this is a developer at Nintendo, let's meet them. Here's their name, here's what they worked on first, and here's a blurb of dialogue that they'd like to say for the magazine, right? Aonuma's blurb is just, I have no intention to stop making games with the Toon art style. He just says that. I wonder what could compel him to say that. You don't even have to read into it that much. It's just there. Oh man. Which is pretty tragic considering, what happens with Twilight Princess, but he fixes that too. Because again, he's a genius. So, okay, is that everything I wanted to say about Wind Waker? Probably not, but I still need to do a lot more research. I mean, I think Wind Waker mostly speaks for itself, It's the first real game where Aonuma has creative control, and he actually, he has enough resources to do what he actually wants to do. Both of those things do not line up very often. Ocarina of Time, he's very overcrowded. He's shouldering responsibilities that really shouldn't be his. Overworked, underpaid, That's how it is with most artists for most of their lives. Essentially, Aonuma comes out of Wind Waker with this really euphoric feeling, like he could really just do anything and he's on top of the world. That's what he means with that first moment in the video where he says that anything can be Zelda, even really strange or weird elements. He's talking about like how he inserted a bunch of his personal life into the games and like got away with it. He probably felt that was a pretty, you know, lofty and young, ambitious thing to do, and they let him do it. And I think as he got into his like, as he got into his late 30s, he's kind of realized like, oh well, I probably shouldn't have gotten away with half of the shit that I did. You know, because studios are just the antithesis of creativity. They're pretty much there to just hinder the artist, man, and make sure that everything is done within, you know, within the budget, and oh, we don't stray too far from audience expectations. They're reactive, not creative. Because if you do anything too challenging, you might scare people off. But art really is about making yourself emotionally vulnerable. So, in order to take risks, you do have to take losses sometimes. And a lot of companies don't realize that, and they strangle their own golden goose. But yeah, I think Wind Waker just works for him so well that he just gets out of his depression from Majora and is just like, okay, well, you know what? Let me try to do Majora again. And that's essentially all Twilight Princess is. It's just what he actually wanted to do with Majora. Granted, the time scale is different, so instead of being like a direct sequel, it's 100 years afterwards. Like Wind Waker was. But I think that is more of a like change he would have made in hindsight anyway. Because I think what was so successful about Wind Waker is it did have the 100-year time jump, and I think they were trying to like throughout the Zelda games, you know, again, A Link to the Past is a prequel to Zelda 1, and then Ocarina is a prequel to that. They're constantly trying to distance themselves from the story in such a way that, like, it wasn't because Tezuka and Koizumi weren't interested in telling stories. It's essentially, they did that because they didn't want to end up in a scenario where they were bumping heads with the continuity, because the continuity is the main problem. Like, if a studio looks at something, they're gonna like bat an eye if you misinterpret a character or whatever. You know, they're gonna hold your feet to the fire because of that. So if you just do a prequel and you don't have to deal with any pre-existing characters, you just make up new ones that were really always there. You just, you know, you make it up retroactively. It makes it easier to tell your own story in someone else's framework rather than having to be restricted by their characters and all this stuff. Because if you really look at like 64 and Sunshine, they're really not Mario games. I mean, they're kind of doing their own thing. The fact that Mario is there is kind of, it's kind of strange. And Koizumi will use Mario and Link in kind of interchangeable ways. Like the way he the way he approaches design is just like the same. He's not like adapting it for different ones. So, you know, for them to have to deal with the limitations that someone else put into place when they're not even, you know, Miyamoto isn't writing the story to Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, so for him to like come in and say like what the character should be, it's like, well, it's not really your story anymore, man. You walked away. If you wanted to tell the rest of your story, you could have done that. You didn't do that. Which kind of sucks because, like, you know, for a second there, I really wanted to give Miyamoto some kind of credit. I did. Because I saw, like, essentially all the Popeye stuff. So, yeah, if you don't know, Donkey Kong was originally supposed to be a Popeye game, and that's why it's side-scrolling. That's why all that stuff is there. It's essentially just so that when he was depicting Popeye, the executives who own Popeye would be able to tell what it was a depiction of. It's like, oh, it's our character, Popeye. You know, he resembles the character enough. And, like, I kind of thought, like, oh, well, that must mean that Mario stems from Popeye in, like, an artistic way. Like trying to say that it kind of, because what Popeye is about is, I mean, Fleischer's adaptation and everything, like, that's classism in America in the 1930s. And then if you go into Miyamoto's other references and stuff, he got the name Zelda from, Zelda Fitzgerald, who is the wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby. And Gatsby has like a shitload of American classism in it. So I thought, oh, this is who he is as an artist. The problem with doing that, though, is that it just doesn't... There's not enough to go off of. There's too many moments where Miyamoto is just like, oh yeah, Mario's a mascot. I put him in everything, and I don't care. And, like, he doesn't do himself any favors, man. He really doesn't. I really wish that, like maybe he wrote a book or something. Like, there's gotta be something that we can credit him with, because I feel so bad, like, painting him as, like, because he's the most famous game developer of all time, and the point of my video ends up being, like, making fun of him, and I don't... I know, that's a bad look. So, like, how the fuck do I avoid that fate? That's what I've been trying to deal with for a while. Because I wanted there to be some sort of silver lining where it's like, okay, Miyamoto sucks, but he didn't used to. Or, you know, there has to be something, right? It's very... I don't know what I'm gonna do about this. Because the research only points to one thing. I can't... Like, it's gonna seem like I have an agenda for calling him out, but I seriously want to give him some kind of credit where credit is due. And I just am not able to. And I don't know what to do about it. Okay, so... what I wanted to talk about with Section 4... in this live stream, anyway. The big thing I'm not really going to retread all the stuff I already know I'm going to talk about. Again, there is an important reason I wanted to talk about B3313, or why I wanted to play it while I was talking about this other stuff. It does tie into it. Because again, Chris Rillo has a very good understanding of what Yoshiaki Koizumi was doing with Mario 64. I mean, it is something that Chris had to, you know, go out of his way to create, so maybe he wanted it to feel glitchy, I don't know. I don't fully know all of Chris's intentions. What I do know about Chris, though, is that he has a really good grasp on, you know what, let me just show you. The mystery of wet or dry, and where does the solution lie? The city welcomes the visitors with the depths they bring as they enter. Yeah. What the fuck does that mean? So, well, I'll just show. There's, obviously this is a wet, dry world level. Something that is reoccurring in B3 is that, it's a little twist on what Koizumi does. So instead of you saving the town from, or saving the habitat or whatever it is, I guess in this case it's a town. Instead of saving the town from this invasive species, it turns out Mario is the invasive species. He is the he's the problem. He comes in and he floods the town. I think that's a really fateful adaptation, while also, like, it has, like, you know, it has its own thing going on. You see that more in the Bob-omb battlefields, where if you collect a star, you actually get sent to this snowy, broken up place. And it's like you collected the star and you, like, drained all the energy out of the out of the place. It's like a really, again, like a really fateful creepypasta version of what Koizumi was actually doing. Is this, wait. Hey, be careful with those books. Oh. It's a stack of books and I broke it. See, Mario's a menace in this game. He is the causer of all the problems. Whoa. That's new dialogue. Shoutouts to Stanley. That's actually really clever. Sorry, but you're pale, but not as pale as he is. Just because he's faceless Mario. But also, like, I don't know. I just like how Chris writes the dialogue. I don't think there's a. I think there's only one star in this level. Funny enough. Which is crazy, because this is a really creative level. What the hell, Chris? I feel like that's a common thing with Chris. We'll just make, like, a really creative level. It's like, oh, there's one star. And, you know, how all these different levels are habitats for certain creatures. He wanted to, again, he wanted to do a riff on that, where instead of saving them from a invasive species, Mario is himself the invasive species. He comes into wet, dry world, he floods it, he takes the star, and he drains the level of its power. Mario is the antagonist of this Mario game. And I think makes a lot of sense when you consider, like, all the stuff Koizumi's doing really has nothing to do with what Mario is as a character. So, it's a fun little commentary. It's a fun little point of commentary. Because, like, essentially what Chris is saying is that Mario's a foreign entity, and he's invading their world. Just sort of like how, like, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is just me, but I think that when artists are able to do their own thing, and not be tied to whatever brand they happen to be working with, they end up being a lot more creative. Like, they're not limited by, you know, what characters are in the brand. And Koizumi's always really been, you know, he invents so many different new characters in this. There's, I mean, King Boo was already a thing. Let's see. The Thwomps weren't a thing before. I don't think Balams were a thing before. Maybe they were in World. That might just be ROM hacks retroactively introducing them. I don't remember. He invents the Scuttlebug. He invents the Skeeter. There's so many. Chuckya never appears again. Even Wiggler's from Mario World. But yeah, Koizumi just introduces a bunch of new things. And it's kind of big. I don't know if you noticed. But yeah. So I think that comment of Chris's where it's like, oh yeah, Mario's the problem, is kind of fun. Oh. Oh, right, I remembered that, too. I just forgot it until I remembered it. So yeah, there's butterflies next to that door, and that's meant to show you that that's the one with the green star. Really subtle clue, because all the other doors kill you, but... that's just how Chris is, okay? That's... like these two doors, they kill you, except for this one in the middle. There is a real problem in the Zelda fandom. And I've tried to figure out, like, ways to describe it. Essentially, I mean, I think I summed it up pretty well already, but, again, the thing where a game director is, you know, in their early work, they're not able to do the things that they want to do. And so when they finally become able to do the things they want to do, the fans are upset because they don't understand that that's what they always wanted to do. Out of the gate, right? There's a lot of people who just inherently want to have, like, opinion fights. Which is what I was getting at with social media, is, like, there's a lot of just, like, well, my opinion's better than your opinion. And there's really no other basis for what they're saying. It's just, like, that's all they're saying. The way that these people have kind of evolved is they'll become ROM hackers or indie developers, and they'll use what they do in their ROM hacks and games and stuff to retroactively justify things, where it's like, see, it is more fun this way. See, I was right. And there's a lot of fans who do that. A lot of prominent figures, or I guess they would consider themselves prominent figures in the Nintendo community. And oh boy, do I have a thing to say about that. In their early work, they're not able to do the things that they want to do. And so when they finally become able to do the things they want to do, the fans are upset because they don't understand that that's what they always wanted to do. You'll see that a lot with, like what happened with Kojima and Death Stranding was a huge example of that. Konami is holding him back the whole time, man. And now that he's able to do what he wants, a lot of people are not happy about it. They're like, oh, well, it's not, you know, placating to my demands. How dare he? It's like, well, that's what art is, dude. God, I don't know. It's the same problems as I was already discussing with Miyamoto and all this other stuff, where it's like, you know, if you don't have a poetic reason for doing something, then you're not really an artist. You're a programmer. You are making something not because you have a reason to make it, but because you can make it. Right? You're not asking why you should make something. You're asking how you should make something, right? It's a very, like, reactionary thing. And it's not any different when a fan independently does it. I know it's very admirable. It's very admirable. Oh yes, they put, you know, it's a labor of love or whatever. Sure, fine. But if all of this is just to satiate some fan fiction, to validate some sort of opinion that you have about a very niche topic that only, like, I don't know, 100 people care about, like, like, yeah, I guess you'll be venerated by that, you know, 100 people. I don't know, man. It's, I guess my main problem with it is just that it works. That's the really bad part about it, is that it works. It doesn't really matter what someone's intent is, apparently, as long as they spend a lot of time making something. That apparently is, you know, and, I don't know. Like I said, I think Chris is a little different. He is a rather controversial figure if you get to know him. I mean, there's a lot of drama in that community. But I think that shows you proof that he is a different kind of person, because this is an important difference. What makes someone an artist is the reason that they have behind what they're doing. It's not really about, I mean, yeah, you can learn how to do things, right? There is a knowledge to it, but there's also a ceiling to that. You can't, eventually you're not going to get better at drawing. Eventually you're not going to get better at, what you actually have to have is confidence, not skill. And with Chris, you know, there's a certain, like, yeah, he's said some bad things, and I'm not going to say that he's a perfect person. But what I will say is that artists are not really historically happy or safe or healthy people. You become an artist because you want to be emotionally vulnerable. And sometimes when you're vulnerable, you can get hurt. It's just a fact. And the things that artists express and the things that artists want to show to the world eat them up inside before they're able to actually put it on a screen or in a book or wherever it may be, right? There's secrets in this level. See what I mean? Some troubled individual made this shit. Holy God. Yeah, so, again, when an artist makes something, they're doing it because they have something eating them up inside that tells them that they have to, show this to the world, that they have to tell this to the world. And I think the most important kinds of art are things that deal with really just uncomfortable topics. And the people who are obsessed with those things and who have their obsessions around them are people who are going to be particularly troubled. It's just how that goes. We really shouldn't be looking for perfect people. What we should look for are people who have a lot of experience in something and they're able to report back to us so that we don't have to learn the hard way. Something emotionally meaningful that is, it's a very, like, inherently impractical thing. Like, you can't use it to make money. You can't use it to, to sell to anybody. You can't use it to, it's not a skill. It's really not a skill. It's about, like, self-expression, which is something that anyone can do. So, lots of artists have just been accused of being, well, okay, this is, you're whoring yourself. Anybody could do this. It's just like, well, yeah, but you're doing it for a specific reason. So when you have people who do have, like, maybe more practical or really just agenda-based goals in mind, you can tell that they're not really artists. If your artistic goal is to make money, you're a businessman. If art is this specifically defined thing, and it's not just like, oh yeah, I can draw. Look, I'm an artist. Oh look, I can play piano. I'm an artist. It's like those are cool things. They're not. That doesn't inherently mean you have something to say to the rest of the world, though. And I think that there's a lot of different people I could single out for that, and I probably will. I'm hesitant to. I don't really want to go there, but I feel like I have to in a lot of cases because the one I started beefing with on Twitter was Benji, the creator of Azaran, and that dude has no fucking clue about anything. He's pro AI. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, man. Again, they just make indie games so that they can win internet fights. It's really... Oh, I just collected the wrong star. I mean, I have a whole video where I talk about how I used to watch MXR mods, and that was a whole thing, and Skyrim modding is a cool little moment in gaming history, because it was the only time where that sort of thing was expressed healthily, I think. And what I mean is that Bethesda created an environment where that was actually encouraged. That was the point. That was the goal. And so when people made mods for Skyrim, it was more like, oh, well, that's actually kind of what they wanted. They want us to make up our own story. It's Dungeons and Dragons. You're meant to read into it. You're meant to make up your own story and have fun with it. There's a real art form to that. And I think that MXR was a huge asset to that, because he was able to show people that they were artists and that their work should be appreciated as art. Every time he would refeature someone, he would talk about their previous work. Every time, you know, he would always talk about, like, oh, well, this is how you're supposed to play this quest. You know, to enjoy it properly, you have to play it this certain way. That's, you know, that's kind of how I talk about video games now. It's like, oh shit, you know, you are supposed to play one way. Sorry, you don't have freedom. The player does not have freedom, and that's such a foreign concept today. But it was all there around 2010 Skyrim modding, and that's something we've definitely lost now. I guess it's important to give a little background detail, because I watched a lot of YouTube in the 2010s, as did a lot of people, I'm sure. You know, if the billions of views or anything to go off of. You know, I think that was an important landmark moment in our culture and all that stuff. Death barrier moment. But there's certain drawbacks from it, because a lot of people became self-appointed critics, and they think they know everything, and because they have a platform, people listen to them. And it helped promote a lot of, like, unhelpful ideas. I think everyone knows that, but then we can't really agree on who's who. That's where it really gets... Again, naming names is, like, the hard part, because then it's like, well, you know where I stand now. But I actually want to convince other people. So if I don't name names, then I can, I don't know. But yeah, so I watched a lot of YouTubers back then. I guess I still watch some of them, but not for the same reasons. It's more like I'm studying their downfall or whatever. There's only one or two people that I still, like, enjoy genuinely. But yeah, I really don't think that many Skyrim mods were really even made with the idea that, oh yeah, we're gonna do this better than Bethesda did. That's really stupid. I don't think anyone thought that way. I don't think Eleonora thought that way with her house mods. I don't think anyone making follower mods were, like, comparing themselves to Lydia or Serana or whatever. Like, it's really just the engine it's made in. It's a, you know, whether or not it's, you know, people weren't thinking about it in that way. They were thinking about it in the sense of, like, here's a cool character we could make. If anything, people basically copied Serana. There was no attempt to, like, one-up Bethesda and, like, haha, they make such shitty games, let's do it better. Like, no. And it's not even, like, former modders saying that. It's, like, other people who don't really know anything about Skyrim, but know that the game gets modded to death. They say that because, like, oh, well, I don't like Skyrim. Let me straw man an argument. But the thing that happens more often, I guess, with Nintendo games specifically, is that people will have this... People will have, like, an anti-Sunshine bias, right? Or they'll have a anti-Twilight Princess bias. And then they'll make a game that basically ignores everything but, like, the first two entries in the series, right? And they're kind of like proud of their ignorance. Like, oh, I excluded this. That makes me better. What it really shows is that they just didn't make an attempt to understand anything. They had a very knee-jerk reaction to something. He's just built different like that. I don't know. The way I keep explaining Mario Sunshine to my boyfriend, because he was playing that for the first time, he was like, he was really having a hard time with the game, and I was just like, yeah, it's inconsistent and punishing. And he just looks at me like, what? Yeah, it's a bad game. I'm like, yeah, it's inconsistent and punishing. I don't know. I personally just don't give a shit. I play Sunshine for the story. I know that the gameplay is kind of mid. I don't care. It's totally worth it to see what cool new enemies and NPCs and levels that he comes up with are. That's a big reason I like revisiting it too. It's still kind of disappointing that you know, again, he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to do with that. Like, I think in some ways Majora is a little more finished than Sunshine is in that regard anyway, because of what's going on with Skull Kid versus Shadow Mario. Because Bowser Jr. does the whole reveal thing in Pinna Park, and then Flood makes a comment, oh, they're heading to Corona Mountain. But that's like, honestly, pretty early in your playthrough. You're not going to see Bowser Jr. for another half of the game. So the player is left a little confused about, okay, well, what was even the point of that? Right? Because he just puts the Shadow Mario thing back on, and you have to fight him 8 times. So, like, what was the point? I think, and I don't really know because it's hard to tell how much, he didn't have that much involvement from what I know in, what is it, Bowser's Fury, that's what it's called. They're kind of like proud of their ignorance. Like, oh, I excluded this. That makes me better. What it really shows is that they just didn't make an attempt to understand anything. They had a very knee-jerk reaction to something. And, you know, when Kaze does something like the Yoshi's Island 64 or Missing Link, it's just like, it has such a naked agenda to it that you can't even talk about those games without talking about that. Like, that's why he titled it those things. That's why he's doing it. And sure, like, I guess if you're ignorant, you can totally go, oh yeah, well, this is just a cool fan game with no agenda. But, like, you have to be ignorant to think that. First real, like, brush with that stuff. And I really don't, I should say, you know, I think that Neril has made a lot of, like, not just good videos, but great videos. He's a pretty intelligent person. When he wants to be. But I really don't think that his texture pack is the opinion piece that he thinks it is. It's a fine texture pack. I think that even his little video where he was like explaining how to make texture packs and like you can use stock images but don't make it look like a stock image, and all those little things and hints and advice, like that was an excellent video. He honestly, he knows a lot more than a lot people, but I think that's a good reason to talk about him. He's the main person I want to talk about in Section 4 regarding non-flaws with the Zelda games, because I want to argue with intelligent people, and that's why I focus Section 2 all around Vinny Vinesauce. I think Vinny's got a good head on his shoulders. That's why I kind of single him out and do that. So with Neryl, he's made a lot of videos that I genuinely really like. All the stuff on motion controls is great. Everything he says in those videos is awesome. It's actually like a sustained plea for better options as far as input. It's awesome. I love that. And he doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't hold back. It's great. For a time, I even liked his little Last Jedi video. For what little hope I held out for that movie. I think that was... it takes balls to put yourself out there and say stuff like that. I don't know. There's a real like he's a very good communicator. That doesn't mean that I think what he says is perfect every time, though. He's a very entertaining person, but I don't think he knows everything about everything. And when I saw that video, even before I started this research on and stuff, like at the time it really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, well, that seems weird. Like, he's saying one of the main points in his video is regarding the controls of the Deku and the Zora. And that always like caught me off guard that he would do that. And then he also linked that in with his Red Letter Media opinions of George Lucas. And like, I didn't know anything about Star Wars at that time, so that also kind of made me scratch my head. I mean, my dad, made me watch Star Wars, of course, because that's how that works. But yeah, I didn't really know anything about it. It didn't make any sense to me, really. And so at the time, I just kind of glossed over it, like, oh well, maybe it's whatever. But actually, it's the defining video of his channel. He makes it the thumbnail of that video, his profile picture. It's his like entire thesis statement for why he's making the texture pack, because he thinks that the 64 version is superior. And when you know all that shit, it's just like, well, I mean, what the fuck, dude? It really is like the one that he put like the least effort into, and also the most confidence, ironically, which is, I think you can kind of tell too, because after that, none of his videos really have anything to do with Zelda at all. I'm not going to say that he was grifting, because he's still working on the Majora's Mask project, obviously. But I think that, you can just make a texture pack, dude. You could just make a texture pack if you really want to do that. You can make a texture pack, but you don't have to. You don't have to say that. This is the end all be all, and here's why. Like, you could just make a texture pack. I don't understand why it has to be this big thing. of like, oh, I'm right and you're wrong, and it's very... I think it shows a huge insecurity and just, like, he just wants to be accepted by other people, right? And I think other people see that he's insecure and they go, hey, I'm insecure too. Let me be a fan of this channel. That's how a lot of gamers do. I mean, they aren't willing to confront their emotions through fiction, and they think, like, they take that as like a sense of pride. They're like, oh, well, I hate story, so that makes me better than you. But okay, I guess I'll, even though I don't really want to, I guess I'll engage with his arguments. Okay, so the biggest crime, as far as Nerl is concerned, because the story is completely unchanged in the 3DS version, but what he doesn't like about it is that it makes the game too bright and colorful when... What? So, let's give Nerl the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he is restoring Imamura's vision of what the art direction should be like. Okay. What's his name again? Imamura. Yeah, Imamura is the art director for that game. He's primarily the... if you look at Imamura's like most recent game, where he recently left Nintendo, but it is very reminiscent of Star Fox, and the primary thing he's credited with is Star Fox. So that's a big thing for him, personally. I will talk a little bit about him in Section 4. For unfortunate reasons. Okay, sure. If you watch interviews with Imamura, what he has to say about his own art style in Majora's Mask is that the art style was meant to reflect the things in the story. And the story was come up with by the director. And we know who the director of Majora's Mask is, so we can investigate no further. If you're gonna take a major part of your Majora's Mask video to slander the guy who made Majora's Mask, what are you even doing, dude? You have no self-awareness at all? And on top of that, you know, he references the George Lucas stuff in Red Letter Media, and it's just like, yeah, that's not something to be proud of. That's really bad optics, dude. Holy shit. So, yeah, and again, I think Nerl's made a lot of great points in other videos. I think he's a intelligent person. He's capable of better. Why has he left this on his channel with absolutely zero apology? I don't really know. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Especially with his the other things he said. I mean, he sits there and defends Ryan Johnson of all people, and it's like, okay, well, if you can understand that, I mean, how can you not make room for, you know, Aonuma or Koizumi or, you know, anyone actually involved with Majora? He doesn't even talk about Koizumi, which is the crazy part. Like, Koizumi is the main guy responsible for Majora. Instead, he just slanders Aonuma and says, that's good enough. He doesn't talk about Imamura, even though that would be an easy thing to point to of like, hey, this guy had a different idea for the art style. I don't know. He doesn't even make that argument. He's just like, oh, Majora's Mask is a dark game, therefore it should have dark colors. When Majora's Mask ends with a rainbow and sunshine, you know, it's it's really not... The dark things are there on the surface, but it's really just meant to be a metaphor for what's happening at Nintendo at the time, which is that they're... Aonuma is, like, terrified that the game is going to release and it's going to flop and that he's going to get fired by Miyamoto. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is the moon's crashing, is him getting fired. You know, it's ultimately like a parody to, like, make fun of him. And you see that in the following interviews where Aonuma just continues to roast the shit out of Miyamoto and rake him over the coals. And, you know, to understand their relationship is to understand, like, a good portion of what, you know, what those games were even trying to say. There's not really an attempt to do that in Neryl's video. He doesn't really talk about the office politics. He just talks about what Aonuma said once in one Iwata Asks video, and then kind of leaves it at that. I don't know. It just sucks. This is why we can't have nice things. I don't know. I can't think of anything else to say. I guess I would have to bring up his specific points that he makes in the video to talk about it more. Because I don't want to paraphrase and misremember certain things. I think I got the highlights. He thinks that the art style should be dark because the story is dark, and he, you know, leaves it at that. But he doesn't consider the possibility that, you know, maybe the story isn't that dark. Like, that's not really what it's doing. It's not why it's, you know, it has those things. I don't know. I guess this is one where I don't really know what the intro will be until after I've already made the whole thing, because it's a hard thing to put a conclusion on, because it's basically just like this is also the most speculative part of the video, where I basically just, like, I no longer have a foundation on, well, I mean, I still have the, you know, what I'm basing my ideas off of, but I'm more so, like, saying, well, maybe this is what he meant by this, or maybe this is indicative of this, not, oh yes, he directly said this. Which is why I separate it into a different section rather than, oh, okay. That's why I thought I could make a second video out of this, because none of it really comes to a satisfying point. It's just more like miscellaneous shit. I don't have like a hard conclusion like I do with 1, 2, and 3. 4 is like a bonus section. And I feel like if I forced it, it would come off as a bias and an agenda. Like, yeah, I could totally delve into the Red Letter Media stuff if I really wanted to, but it's just... That'd be stupid. I wouldn't even flirt with that, to be honest with you. It's become a thing where it's like, it's not even fun to make fun of them anymore. It's just kind of sad. I guess I could get into the whole Red Letter Media thing if I really wanted to. I don't, though. I would recommend Bob Vid's video on CinemaSins. I would recommend Rick Worley. But yeah, I would primarily talk about Benji, Kaze, and Neryl. Because all three of them are very fundamentally based on this very false idea that that Skyward is some kind of mistake, or that TP is some kind of mistake, or whatever. Or that they just basically don't like story-driven games. When, I mean, the Zelda games were always... They pretty much were always RPGs. I mean, that's... You know, he says in that one Wind Waker presentation, he likes text-based adventures. That's why they're not voice-acted, you know, it's an RPG. It's difficult because I'm coming from a perspective of a person who actually grew up with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. So to me, it's very bizarre that anyone asks these questions like what is the timeline, or you know, why are we doing this, or whatever. To me, it was all too obvious. You know, before I could even read, I was playing Twilight Princess and Wind Waker back to back on my GameCube. Okay, that's what I grew up with. So to me, it's like there is no. Why is the art style different? No, that didn't matter to me. Oh, why is there two different links? Are they the same or not? It's like that didn't matter to me either. It was just like part of the zeitgeist as far as I was concerned. And so entering into the Zelda fandom, I kind of had to like weirdly come up against these concepts that to me were completely natural and normal, which is, it's kind of an isolating feeling. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about like how I can sort of come off like a jackass or lecturing, is like this stuff is totally alien to me. Like I don't even know really why I'm entertaining it, because it just seems like like a nonsense complaint. And especially with Section 1, I mean, there's just so many things where it's like, how do people find problems with these things? In my Zelda video, I'm just using other people's long plays, and I don't care if they have a watermark or anything. Like, it's just completely, like... For me, getting my point across is way more important, and just doing that quickly, rather than... Because I don't want to be here all day, you know? I know that I spend 200 days straight on this project. Okay, I know that I did. But I want to get on with my life. That's why I'm working on it every day, so that I don't have to do it anymore. So, I don't know. It's very weird. And doing research for this, especially for Wind Waker, was super validating, because it made me realize, like, oh yeah, it is all it is all bullshit. The fans are totally wrong, which I think the fans of anything are almost always wrong. Like, you don't know more than the person who created the thing. Sorry to say, but you don't. Things get popular for a reason. It's because the people who make them are geniuses. So, you know, it's like they thought about it. They chose to do something else. It was intentional, man. When I started doing this research, I was pretty annoyed that I was the only one kind of talking about these things. Like, at length. I know people mention it as like, ooh, cool, fun fact. The developers did this, blah, blah, blah. But they don't talk about it in depth of like, okay, this is the artist's intent for the thing, and this is why this exists, and, you know, talking about their life story. Like, I think it's a pretty complicated topic when you look at it, like, when you zoom out and you see the whole picture, rather than just having a bunch of bullet point, you know, fun facts. I can never stop, like, reassessing that and trying to see the bigger picture. So I think a lot of people miss that. There's not really a bigger picture when a lot of people talk about Nintendo history. They're just like, oh, well, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. But there's not really, like, a story to it. There's not really, not that you should construct a narrative, right? Like, you shouldn't have an agenda. But I'm talking about, like, having a point to what you're saying and having a general takeaway. But when people talk about these things, they'll often like loosely refer to them as, oh, Nintendo did this, or Nintendo wanted this, or they made this decision, or the developers, or they don't look up names and faces. And I think it's really humanizing to just watch a video of Koji Kondo playing the piano. It's not that difficult to figure out. Most of the stuff that I am using as research is, you know, it happened not even in 2015. You know, a lot of this shit is just, like, from exactly when the games came out. They're having interviews simultaneous with that. And I know, you know, yeah, there's not, you know, it might be a little unreasonable to expect, I don't know, at least one person has to be a Nintendo nerd enough to buy all the magazines and read them, right? Like, is that super unreasonable? Because, like, I feel like at least one person, for how, you know, Nintendo's this really, really popular, you know, tons of people play Mario and Zelda games. This is not really Kino stuff. You know, I sit here and I talk about, like, oh, this is, you know, his artwork and all that stuff. Yeah, it's really pop art. It was meant to be popular, and it is popular. There's a real problem where if something is popular enough, people just completely ignore the facts. And I'm not saying, like, oh, someone else presented the facts and they're ignoring the person. I'm saying they don't even seek them out in the first place. There's not even a desire to try to find out anything about it. There's a desire to talk about it and make an opinion piece about it, but there's not a desire to actually present it as it was meant to be presented originally. And I think humanizing the developers is an important step towards that. Being able to see them as people. Even though I do make fun of Miyamoto, it's like, well, you know, he's still an artist. I think one of the first things I say in Section 3 is that they are artists, but it's important to distinguish between something that contains art and something that is itself art. Like, if... Like, something can have, like, a drawing in it, and it be a toy still, or it just be entertainment. And, you know, again, that's a standard that I don't always live up to myself. Sometimes I do things that are just literally just so I can be entertained. I'm human, I have emotions. Yeah, I did beat Bowser already. I have all the red stars. I have like 27 hours in this game now. And I am playing B3313 for an important reason in this stream. Is something I wanted to say. But I think I want to include this, like, unscripted stuff in my actual video. Because as much as I want to be this person that hates fun and is devoid of entertainment and you know, only purely absorbs video games as art, as poetry, as understanding the artists and the level designers and the director's life story and understanding how, you know, all those connections. As much as I want to be that person, that is a standard that I do not live up to on a daily basis. And expecting other people to is also been really taxing on me emotionally. It feels bad because it feels like I'm sacrificing a lot by conceding those things. But I know that ultimately I am human, and I have needs, I have emotions. And it sucks. It sucks that, you know, we're all selfish, including myself. But I think in a lot of my video, I have this, like, lecturing tone. And I don't want to come off like a jackass. So I think including some of this, you know, unscripted, it helps me feel a lot less pressure. It helps me feel like the whole world isn't against me, maybe. Sometimes I do things that are just literally just so I can be entertained. I'm human, I have emotions. And it's easy for me to forget that, too, when I'm, like, lecturing on a topic. Because I think, you know, it is a serious topic. It is important for us to confront our emotions through fiction. It's important to have mature discussions about things. But that's sort of where things... It gets pretty informative of, like, okay, well, this is how we can create permanent solutions to these problems now. Because not only do we need to insist upon the authority of artists in their own work, I think it's also important to, like, hey, if you know, if this guy has a story to tell us and he's the director and everything, like, let him actually tell his story. Like, as a general, like, practice, right? If we can encourage that in individuals, we can encourage that in, like, anyone who wants to be an artist and anyone who's interested in art or respects creativity. I think that's a huge... I mean, there's, like, a study... I don't remember how recent it is. But they gave him, like, 300 euros, and they found, like, for every dollar they spent on artists, they got, like, $1.39 back. Or whatever. Just by improving the world with art. Just purely from that. So it is a, like... It is quantifiable. I'm not saying we could fix all, you know, all the world's problems with art, but it would help. Man, there's a lot of, like, I don't know, there's a lot of, like, political things that it gets into, too. I'm not sure how much I want to talk about it. It's a very heady topic. And I don't know if I don't even know if I'm there yet. I don't know, because I still need to work on this Zelda video. Like, I have a lot of ground to cover, man. I can see the destination, I can't see the road. I mean, I think Wind Waker mostly speaks for itself, you know. It's the first real game where Aonuma has creative control, and he actually, like, he has enough resources to do what he actually wants to do. Both of those things do not line up very often. Ocarina of Time, you know, he's very overcrowded. He's shouldering responsibilities that really shouldn't be his. Overworked, underpaid, you know. That's how it is with most artists for most of their lives. It's a very sad reality, and I hope that we can fix that. I don't really know that. I don't know that what I'm doing will lead to a permanent solution. I'm basically just complaining on the internet. I do have ideas, but I have no idea, you know, how we would... I mean, it seems unattainable. Maybe I become a politician or something. I don't know. I don't know how it would work. I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm 20 now, so maybe it'll happen later. Just right now it feels like just have no idea. We gotta do something because people really need hope right now. These are not good times. At the same time, I don't want to like forget all the things that I like am focused on. Like, I have a lot of things floating around in my head, but I know I can't capitalize on all of them immediately, and I don't want to forget. So that's what these are really for, just so I can get my thoughts out there and remind myself of where I'm headed and what the roadmap is. Because I have an idea of what I want to do, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that... That doesn't mean I have it all planned out in advance. He's just built different like that. I don't know. The way I keep explaining Mario Sunshine to my boyfriend, because he was playing that for the first time, he was like... He was really having a hard time with the game, and I was just like, yeah, it's inconsistent and punishing. And he just looks at me like, what? Yeah, it's a bad game. I'm like, yeah, it's inconsistent and punishing. I don't know. I personally just don't give a shit. I play Sunshine for the story. I know that the gameplay is kind of mid. I don't care. It's totally worth it to see what cool new enemies and NPCs and levels that he comes up with are. That's a big reason I like revisiting it too. It's still kind of disappointing that, you know, again, he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to do with that. Like, I think in some ways Majora is a little more finished than Sunshine is, in that regard anyway, because of what's going on with Skull Kid versus Shadow Mario. Because Bowser Jr. does the whole reveal thing in Pinna Park, and then Flood makes a comment, oh, they're heading to Corona Mountain. But that's like... honestly, pretty early in your playthrough. You're not going to see Bowser Jr. for another half of the game. So, the player is left a little confused about, okay, well, what was even the point of that, right? Because he just puts the Shadow Mario thing back on, and you have to fight him 8 times. So, like, what was the point? I think... And I don't really know, because... It's hard to tell how much... He didn't have that much involvement, from what I know, in, what is it? Bowser's Fury, that's what it's called. He did, like, 1 or 2 levels for it, basically, and that was it. But it is kind of interesting that Bowser's Fury has any of those elements, because we haven't seen them in years, and I'm pretty sure that as director of that game, he has to sign off on that stuff, too. Like, he would have to be there and be like, yes, you can do this with the thing that I came up with. Because, you also see that's the case with, everybody and their mother asks, oh, why isn't Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Switch? Why isn't it on the Switch? Why isn't it on the Switch? And they ask it over and over and over again. Yeah, the reason it's not is because Aonuma doesn't want it on the Switch. It's pretty cut and dry. If they could, if they really could, they would have. The reason they can't is because Aonuma doesn't want that to happen. I think a lot of people just think about that shit like, oh, well, it's free money. Why don't you just do it? Why isn't there a phone app for the Chow Garden? That's the one you hear a lot, too. It's just like, well... Sonic Adventure is a whole other topic, but, that's Takashi Iizuka's art. He came up with it. He gets to decide, he gets to decide what happens with it. And I don't know, people just don't think critically about that shit. Because you hear that so often. Man, that was totally unfiltered rant. Well, I guess it's in the title, so you know what you signed up for. Yeah. I probably will never make a Sonic Adventure video. I'm just telling you right now. That probably will never happen. It is something I'd like to do, but I really doubt that this video essay will get any traction. I have severe, severe doubts about that, and I didn't even really want to do this one, but I just felt like I'm halfway done. Let's just do it. I'm not halfway done. I'm almost halfway done, but whatever. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I got all the stars in this area. Just wanted to triple check. So you never be too sure with 400 stars. I like that Chris revisited this area and added more little assets to it. Like this cave especially was pretty barren before, and now it looks very pretty. There's new, like, colorful blocks. I knew that level was going to get updated because the Bomb has unique text. And you know, whenever you're playing an RPG, you know that whenever there's unique text, that is an area that's important. It's a very easy way to figure that out. And yes, I did just call this an RPG. Okay. I am cooked. I am in way too deep. And it's kind of a shame. And that's something I'll talk a lot more about if I ever do make that stupid Sonic Adventure video. Because people do it way more with Sonic than they do with Mario. Like, so much more. I don't know, man. I guess I could get into here, let's call it section 5 since since I insist on this shit. So yeah, I mean, Takashi Iizuka is, what is he? He's director, enemy programmer, level designer. I think he even had like a 4th credit on Sonic Adventure 2. So yeah, literally all the people who are like, oh yeah, SA2 is the best one, blah 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 blah. Yeah, you're playing a game made by one man. And his name is Takashi Iizuka, and he hasn't made a game since 2005. And he hasn't done that because he's terrified of you. All the stuff, I mean, you can partially blame him for that too, but it's really like he has stopped being a director and just started being like the Sega brand manager. And more people know him for that than they know that he actually made the adventure games. And the adventure games is why he became so protective of the shit, because he knew that he had something worth protecting, you know? It's a really big topic, and goes without saying it deserves its own video. But I don't know if I'll get there. I don't know if I don't think any of this is gonna fly. I think everyone's gonna see that that I'm disliking their favorite YouTubers or whatever, and they're just gonna be like, well, this video is not for me. No one's gonna be really ready for what I have to say, so I have already accepted that this will not get viral, and if it does, no one will be on my side, so. Not that, I mean, you know, the day of the viral video is dead, too. I mean, there's no chance in heaven or hell that this happens. Right? But if it does, if it does, I have ideas. Anymore, and we didn't learn the right lessons from it either. What people took from that is that, Bethesda makes bad games and fans make up for it. No, Bethesda's made... Bethesda's quality has not changed since their inception. You need to learn this. They are not focused on polish and story. The few stories that really do get out there, like, that was, you know... This is why the director thing is so important. I keep emphasizing it, because the director curates everything to you and shows you, you know, shows you everything. It's like, yeah, Todd Howard didn't come up with every quest in every Elder Scrolls game, right? But the way that they're all presented to you as equal in value, you know, you get some kind of ancient relic and you can, you know, it's a stronger weapon and you can kill bad guy. You know, they're all presented to you as equal in value, even though, like, some of them have, like, more emotionally impactful stories. They're all, like... Todd sort of views that as all interchangeable, for better and worse. To him, it's just, like, populating a world with stuff to do in it, right? That's really all there is to it. The story's not terribly important. You'll notice, like, there is some carryover stuff, like with maybe the politics and the races, right? But apart from the broad strokes, there's really no quests that get into, like, oh, here's a historic moment in Tamriel history, and you get to be a part of it. It's like, no, that doesn't really happen. That doesn't really happen. It's like, you know, oh god. You know, even some of the main quest stuff, like they try to emphasize that a little bit, like in the marketing, I guess, but in the grand scheme of things, like, that doesn't show up in the other, like, you meet you meet Sheogorath again, right? But you don't, like, he doesn't say, "Hey, I'm the guy from Oblivion," you know? He doesn't say that. There's nothing there. It's just like, oh, it's him again, right? That's all there really is to it. It's just a shared world. They're not really concerned about the history because, again, they're doing the Zelda thing where it's like, oh yeah, this game takes place 100 years in the past, or it's a prequel or whatever. It's a very loose sequel, right? They're just doing another thing in the same universe. It's not really a chronological sequel, if that makes any sense. Anyway, all that all that shit aside, yeah, Bethesda's not trying to make story-driven games. They never have. They're not trying to make polished games either. It's glitchy as fuck. Morrowind is so glitchy. Daggerfall's not really that glitchy, but you can do so many things in Daggerfall that just negate everything. Like, you can... In Morrowind, you can craft spells that make you fly, so you can completely ignore the level design. In Daggerfall, you can fast travel to places you've never been, and also the map is like... what is it? The entirety of Tamriel? Like, you can't... you know, and they're all like... you know, they're all generic environments, so every time you travel to one, it's like you're... You know, there's like 40 copies of the same area, right? It's essentially just trying to populate a world so you can run around in it and make up your own story. That's the point. I think I made that point strongly enough. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Basically, my point with all of that is that no, the fans did not appreciate the value of Skyrim. Skyrim was popular well before modding happened, or well before it really took off. I know, yeah, technically they replaced they replaced the frostbite spider with a bear. I don't know. For the first few years there, they weren't doing much. Okay, Skyrim modding, Bethesda modding in general became like, it was a very like slow climb to get to where we are now, and I don't think people actually appreciate that. They just think that, oh yeah, modders fix all the problems with Bethesda games. It's like, that's not really what's happening. If you pay attention, if you don't want to just slander. Okay, yeah, I think we learned the wrong lessons from Skyrim modding. We really did. People get really enthusiastic about wanting to slander Bethesda, and I know I'm not the biggest fan of them personally, but that doesn't mean that what they're doing is invalid. It's just different. Right, like, I'm the one sitting over here advocating for video games to be considered narrative art, and that cutscenes are an integral part of the gameplay, and they're interconnected, right? If anybody has an agenda to slander Bethesda, it'd be me. Okay, so yeah, a lot of people like to try to compare Bethesda to Rockstar as like a way to slander them and say that, oh, they're not story-driven like Rockstar is. You'll notice something that Rockstar does is that if you drive even slightly off course, it'll say mission failed. A lot of people will use that to slander Rockstar. It's just different studios doing different things for different reasons. It's not none of it's invalid or bad. The reason Rockstar does that, by the way, is because most of their things require synchronizing. So you'll have a phone conversation in the car, or in Red Dead, there'll be a bunch of people riding on horseback, and they're all riding right next to each other and talking. And the only way to set up the scenarios to do that is, yeah, if you go off course, you die. So that you can reset the scene and make it work properly. There is one correct way to play the video game, just like I've been emphasizing over and over again. With B3, there's a lot of, like, beta elements, yeah. But I don't think that anyone has any grand illusions about, like, oh, this is what Mario 64 should be. That's kind of stupid. And I don't just mean that, like, there's no way to really make the game and then it's like, oh yeah, this is an improvement of the thing. Like, it doesn't really matter which one it is. We're not here to... If we're making mods, we're not here to improve on the original, because categorically you can't do that, right? No one can do that, right? No one can do that except for the artist who originally made it. Otherwise, you're not really improving on it. You're just, like, inspired by it or iterating on it. One of the things that I was, like, comparing it to was, like, book adaptations, right? There's just too many pressures on him for you to really make the argument. Like, that's basically just what Mario 128 turned into because of the gravity physics and all that. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I like 3D Land more than I like Galaxy, as far as Koizumi games go, even though he's only producer in that one. What the fuck? Why is there a star in a Quark bot? Chris! Chris. Why'd you do that? What the fuck, man? What? Where did it even spawn? I'm so... Oh, it's in the same spot. What is... Oh yeah, find the core. Find the core. I thought you had to look up at a certain angle. Maybe that's only unabandoned. Okay, fair enough. What, Bowser's sub is sunk? What is this lore? Chris, what the fuck? Eh? Where's the red coins, man? I've got like 7 of them, probably. Is there stuff up here? It looks like there is. What the hell? What the hell is this? I can't do that. Do you expect me to do that? You expect me to do that? What the... How am I supposed to do this without my drink? Maybe I can get to the second one with the fly guy, but... Oh my god. How are you meant to do this? You don't have any room. Wow. Is there a star up here? There is. What the... What? Okay. Helpful. Okay. I was gonna say. Every now and again, Chris will do something like that, and, yeah. I don't know, swimming in a Mario, in 3D Mario anyway, is just kind of not fun. You're just spamming A the whole time. Like this. It's a little, there is a small upside in B3. If there's a lot of water, you just like spam it as fast as you can, and you'll eventually like build up exponential speed, which kind of feels like a glitch, but because I gotta think the other red coins are over here. He likes to just put red coins right behind the start. Just to F with you. Now I really don't know.